Batman is just okay. I'll probably call the video that, so there's no point opening with it. Anyway, you know, I think that's probably a pretty good thing as far as superhero stories go. I feel like Batman is sort of consistently serviceable. Well, that's maybe a hot take. You know, there's Batmans that people love and Batmans that people hate, but, you know, to me, it's all fine. Man, I wish I was talking while that lightning happened. It would have been really dynamic and visual. You know, the really good stuff is pretty good, and the really bad stuff is sort of silly fun, especially in the movies, which will be what I'm mostly talking about. Comic books, it's a scumfuck medium written exclusively by perverts. Now, the point of this video is that I had a half-finished Batman script that I thought I could use. Not a script for one of these videos. I write these, by the way. I don't know if that comes across. I wrote that I just said then. And I wrote that as well. Anyway, the point is, I had this Batman script, I thought I'd finish it up and could do a Batman video pretty quickly. The only problem was that script was shit. So I started a fresh script, and the only problem with that was it was also shit. So I started a fresh script, and that one was also shit. So I'm still gonna do a Batman video, but I'm just gonna sort of tackle them all at random. And a lot of this stuff hasn't really been worked out, and I'm not too pleased with it. But I think when sort of mashed together, I don't know, we could achieve something interesting here. Now, the point of this video is that Batman, on March 1st, 6 AM my time, is going to see a massive spike in search trends and social media engagement. So I'll make a video to hit that tentpole, which is of course the goal of all YouTube content. Not to make something good, to make something that has a relevant keyword in its title. And it always works. Stupid. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do now, but obviously, well, this won't work. Not with this messy bit at the start. You hear that where I said that comics were for perverts? This is nightmarish. People are going to be leaving in droves. Anyway, let's talk about Batman. I guess the differentiating thing about Batman is that it's serious. It's for adults, by which I mean the most stunted men alive. Or as Zack Snyder puts it, grown-ups. You know, these are like real movies, or they're trying to be real movies. A real movie being like maybe has something to say about identity or society, or it shows you something you wouldn't normally see, or just prepares you for death. So the problem to me with Batman is that, well, Batman doesn't tell us anything because Batman isn't real. That's maybe not the most incredible take of all time, but I think Batman is one of the least real characters. You know, he's so like grounded and stuff, but no one's life is actually going to reflect Bruce Wayne's in any meaningful way. No one's life is going to reflect the Joker's in any meaningful way. All of the sort of facts of his reality have no correlation to our reality. I think actually the problem is Batman is this silly comic book character, and then of course the modern interpretation of Batman is based on this sort of ironic approach. The 60s TV show sort of reinterpreted Batman ironically as camp and sort of played up the silliness of it, and then of course the reaction to that was reinterpreting Batman as dark and gritty as possible. But the content hasn't changed. The idea is to sort of recontextualize this adolescent fantasy into something that isn't going to be embarrassing to read or watch. That's the goal. It's just to make Batman not embarrassing through the power of irony. So, you know, you look at Batman and you say, well, if Batman was a real guy in the real world, he would be a fucked up guy, you know, which is a good observation. Or, you know, like Batman and the Joker are two sides of the same coin. Yeah, great point. You are successfully, ironically reinterpreting Batman, but you know, it's not doing anything more than that. The fact that Batman and the Joker are similar doesn't actually tell us anything. Batman's stories would all be really relevant for Batman. If Batman watched a Batman movie, he would get a lot out of it. I always liked when they do like, which is the real mask? Is it the rubber disguise? Or is it the fronts that we put up to blend in society? And of course the answer is always the rubber disguise. Not who you are inside. It's what you do that counts. That's really, really relevant for Batman, and absolutely nothing. You can't apply that to your life. Batman tells us nothing about the human experience, and you know what Batman tells us about society is that if there was an evil clown, he could get punched by a Batman. But that's not just Batman. This is a problem with superheroes, right? They're an individual with the ability to solve societal problems just through their sheer power. So they can't tell us anything about a social issue or an individual issue. They have to be just sort of this one note, all-powerful individual. When I talked about the Marvel formula, I mentioned that in superhero stories, your character usually sort of starts all-powerful. They don't need to go through that process of, like, Luke Skywalker goes on a journey to become part of the larger world. The superhero stories do that same sort of format, but they remove the growth element of it. So it's just a guy being epic. It's sort of an ideal fable for right now, I guess. You know, everyone's so sort of individual and atomized. Makes sense why it's a popular story to tell. It doesn't it doesn't tell us anything. It never does. When this is light entertainment, obviously that's fine. When it moves into this territory of being like monoculture, you know, it's not great. And I'm not saying that Batman isn't woke enough. You know, I'm saying all superhero stories can't say anything. You know, a fascist reading of Batman, which is kind of popular, is equally as incoherent as people who are going, why doesn't Batman just give more to charity? And you know, of course, a Batman story doesn't really allow for that. There's the limitations of the genre. It wouldn't necessarily be very entertaining, all that stuff. But, well, the thing for me is, what? You just want it to be like a regular billionaire? Like, Batman lives in a world, right, where the criminals are just constantly breaking out of jail because they love to do crime so much. And he's the only one that can stop them because he's so powerful and good. If you try and project any real-world logic onto it, it doesn't make any sense at all. I don't really get it, right? Because, what, you just want him to be more like Bill Gates? It doesn't... What? How is that the woke take? Surely the wokest take is that Batman should be killed. So I think what appeals to me about Batman is it kind of undermines that mythology by being a bit of a mess. Through its sort of ironic reinterpretation, you just have the aesthetics of seriousness without any of the messaging. The more grounded it becomes, the more they tie themselves in knots trying to justify it, which I love. Batman stories now sort of require that you ignore Bruce Wayne. You know, Batman fans will tell you this, the character of Batman is the least interesting part of Batman, and the character of Bruce Wayne is the least interesting part of the character of Batman. Because it's embarrassing, it has to be ignored for the aesthetic. I think Batman fans are totally fine with that. You know, there's sort of this idea that the dual life storyline that's for Spider-Man and Superman. That's not a Batman thing. But I really like it whenever they do it, because it doesn't quite work. If you think about it at all, it just all falls apart. Surely everyone would know that he's What about Batman? The women that he's dating? Where did the Waynes get their money ever around? How any like of these depictions of psychosis he's in any way gone every night? Actual world. They never fuck. But you know, all of that is fine in a kid's cartoon for children. So, you know, I thought Arkham Origins was one of the better Batman stories. Out of all of them, I think it's one of the best Batman stories because it actually tries to bring a real humanity to Batman. It tries the hardest to get you as an audience invested in Batman. It doesn't actually get there, but it does try the hardest to do that, which I feel like is something missing from the other stories. It's maybe not something that a Batman audience is looking for, but I think it is something that broadly people are looking for in stories, is characters. Now, conversely, I think Batman the Telltale series is one of the better Batman stories because it does the opposite, kind of. I played it for the first time when I was editing that Arkham Origins video. I was going, fuck, why didn't I write a video about this instead? First off, they really do try to sort of address the problems with Batman. You know, he comes from dirty money. A large point of the game is sort of you trying to reform Arkham and help the city through legitimate means. You know, you could spend about half the game playing as Bruce Wayne instead of Batman, so, you know, for me on that level, it's kind of alright, but it is dumb as fuck. Now, what it really does well is basically accidental. You know, Telltale games are sort of notorious at this point for giving you the illusion of choice, but not really having any consequences or anything. So the great thing about that in a Batman story is, right, you can play as Bruce Wayne. You can try and do everything right, be as altruistic as possible. You are giving money to charity, all that stuff, right? You're the good CEO. There's a choice in the game to save Two-Face or Catwoman from imminent disfigurement, and most players choose to save Catwoman. I assume, you know, they kind of metatextually, they know Two-Face is going to get disfigured, that's his story, you know, and there's an emotional resonance to the Catwoman side of stuff. So most players choose to save Catwoman, which is sort of the selfish option. But what's really interesting is if you save Two-Face, because it doesn't affect his story at all. You do everything right. You do everything right and nothing changes. Whatever you do, you get the same ending, which is going to be a sort of neutral, downer ending, fitting for someone who played the game you know, evilly and someone who played it good. You use all the powers at your disposal to sort of influence the world to become good through your raw individualism, and it does nothing. You know, the plot is unchanged, and I think that is a fantastic bit of messaging, even if it's not what they're going for. Because, you know, well, as far as superhero stories go, if none of them can tell you anything except, you know, your individualism is the best thing that you have, this is a superhero story that goes, you, as an individual, are ultimately not going to affect any change, which is impressive, I think. Even if it's not what they were going for. So that's great and all. It's Batman almost elevated to satire. It's sort of doing satire by alienating you, the player, but I think it's about as close as you can get. And, you know, this sort of ironic reading of it doesn't really do anything. You know, it is genuinely how I experienced the game, but for a mass audience, you know, no one's playing this and going, oh yes, I'm being alienated and now I feel like part of the larger world. People just went, well, this isn't as good as it could have been. You know, I would love to see Batman explicitly used for satire. Not like funny, just sort of, you know, critical. Of course, it wouldn't work. The target audience for Batman would never grasp those concepts. And if you did a Batman story where Batman wasn't just being epic from start to finish, you know, everyone would hate it. So it's not the forum for this sort of messaging. So I guess that means the only option left, if you really wanted to say something with a Batman story, would be to not make it and do something else. I think the joy of Batman is to see the writers sort of attack him in a different way every time, which is a lot of fun. It always sort of adds a level of complexity. It tells you something new about Batman, but it doesn't do you any good. Batman kind of always works because it's always deconstructing itself, but it never gets any further than that. And I don't know that it can. Jesus Christ, is that the ending? There you go. Hopefully that's come together cleanly. You don't notice the gears shifting between the different scripts too obviously. I'm going to throw up... That's not where I meant to finish that sentence. I'm going to do a video ranking all of the Batman movies, if that's of interest to you. I've also done a full visual effects breakdown for every visual effects shot that I did on my Star Wars edits. And, well, I have no plans to see the Batman immediately, but when I do, I'll probably put our review of that up on the website. So check all that out. And otherwise, thanks for watching. I don't know. No, I'm not giving out blanket thank yous for watching.